Everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're gonna watch the Maze Run 2 Scorch Trial. I've been posting Imaginate Friend. You don't know what it is, go check out my channel, you see it. We're gonna watch it right now. If you like it, go subscribe and hit that thumbs up button and like this video. I will making a new video and a short one. Let's do it.
Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone.
Right now,
After escaping the maze with his fellow survivors, Thomas wakes up on a helicopter. Soldiers escort the teenagers to their facilities, where they face the infected and rabid people known as the Cranks. In the facilities, the leader, Jansen, welcomes Thomas and his friends Teresa, Miho, Newt, Frypan, and Winston. Jansen promises to take them to a safe zone where the organization Wicked, as they call those who controlled the maze, can't find them. Jansen, who is in charge of that facility, believes that they are humanity's chance for survival as they are immune to the flare virus. The newly arrived youths undergo medical assessments and blood sample collection. During this process, Thomas observes Dr. Crawford approaching Teresa. Later, Thomas is taken to an interrogation room where Jansen asks what he knows about Wicked. Thomas admits that he used to work for Wicked, but they sent him to the maze where he saw his friends die. Jansen asks him why Wicked sent Thomas to the maze, but Thomas insists he doesn't remember why. Next, Thomas goes to the cafeteria, where he encounters more youths from different mazes. He joins a table where his friends listen to another main survivor recount how they were saved. The other boy points to Eris, who has been in the facility longer, coming from a maze with only girls. At that moment, Jansen arrives to announce the next group of people to be transferred to the safe zone, calls their names, and escorts them away. Thomas sees Teresa walking with Crawford outside, so he tries to follow them. A guard blocks his path and says Teresa will undergo more tests that night. In the early hours, Thomas hears noises in the ventilation ducts and finds Eris, who encourages him to follow. Crawling through the ventilation ducts, they observe covered stretchers being taken to a restricted area. Eris tells Thomas that they bring in new stretchers every night, but he doesn't know what's inside them because the ventilation ducts don't reach the restricted room. The next day, Jansen gathers more teenagers in the cafeteria. Thomas tells his friends what he saw, but Newt advises him to avoid trouble until they know more. However, when Jansen and the others leave, Thomas rushes to follow them, trying to pretend he's part of the new group. The guard blocks him, knowing he wasn't called. Thomas then attempts to escape, causing a commotion that catches Jansen's attention. Seeing this, Jansen orders them to go back to their rooms. The Gladers, as Thomas and Newt's group is called, are thrown back into the room, where Thomas reveals that he stole the guard's keycard to open the restricted area. He insists that the facility is hiding something, but the others aren't convinced, as the facility has provided them with proper meals and beds, which they haven't had for a long time. Suddenly, Eris arrives through the ducts, and Thomas joins him. They go to the suspected location and open the door to the restricted room, finding tubes with creatures inside and the teenagers brought by Jansen unconscious and connected to tubes. They hear the door open, so they hide. Jansen arrives and speaks with the lead scientist, Ava Page, through a video call. Thomas is surprised to see her alive, considering he saw her being killed during a supposed invasion. Ava orders Jansen to sedate all the teenagers and prepare them for harvesting. Jansen negotiates for more time and assures her that the subjects are safe in the facility. However, Ava complains that the right arm has taken control of 2 other facilities, so she can't afford to lose more subjects as she is close to finding a cure for the flare virus. Thomas quickly returns to his room and explains to his friends that Ava is alive, and the facility is also part of Wicked. Then, Jansen and his men arrive, but the Gladers have already left. Thomas leads the Gladers out of the ducts, but Eris stays behind, claiming he will do something to help with the escape. Winston joins him to assist, while the others keep moving. However, they encounter Crawford just as the alarm goes off. Jansen heads to the control room and sees the Gladers holding Crawford hostage. He orders his men to head to the medical wing, knowing that Thomas will go after Teresa. A guard blocks the Gladers' path, shooting them with shot bullets, but Miho takes him down. Thomas grabs the weapon, and they continue to the medical wing, where they find Teresa. More guards arrive and try to enter the room, so Thomas and Newt break the window into the next room. With a guard approaching, Thomas immediately shoots him with a shock weapon, and they rush to the exit. Thomas uses the key card to unlock the door, but it doesn't work. Suddenly, Jansen arrives and warns them that they won't survive in the scorch or will be killed by the cranks. Suddenly, the door opens, revealing Eris and Winston on the other side. Thomas shoots Jansen and the guards before leaving. They quickly run through the emergency door before it closes. The Gladers emerge into the dark sandstorm, with the guards chasing them. Moments later, they reach an abandoned mall, so they seek shelter inside. Thomas explains that the facility is still part of Wicked, and they were keeping the others alive while draining them. He believes that the other organization they called the Right Arm is Wicked enemy, so they should find them. But before that, in that place, they find makeshift shelter with lanterns and clothes, although it seems to have been there for a long time. Thomas then encourages the group to split up and gather supplies. While searching, Miho finds a lamp and realizes that the building has electricity, so they follow the wires to the generator room. Miho starts the generator, lighting up the entire building. However, the lights alert the cranks present there, so Miho and Thomas run back to the others and close the entrance. But more cranks are inside the building, so they rush back to where the others are. The Gladers head to the upper floors, fleeing the creatures trying to attack them. The group keeps moving, but one of the cranks attacks Newt. Fortunately, Thomas returns and helps his friend by driving away the danger. They reach a narrow corridor leading to a dead-end alley, while the rest try to break down the locked doors, and Winston shoots at the creatures. Frypan breaks down the door, and they try to escape, but Winston is pulled by the things before they can close the door. The group manages to pull him back even with wounds on his abdomen, and then they all manage to escape from the cranks. However, they couldn't leave the place, so the Gladers spend the night hiding behind the wreckage. Thomas wakes up the next day and realizes that the zombie-like humans are gone. As they walk through the streets of a ruined city, wicked airships fly above them, so they hide. Eventually, they reach the edge of the city, but Winston collapses. While resting, Teresa reveals to Thomas that Wicked did something to her to make her memories return. She remembers how they first arrived at Wicked and argues that they should go back. She insists that things are not so simple, but before she can explain more, they hear a gunshot. Winston reveals that he is infected and getting worse. He asks them not to let him become a crank, so Newt gives him the gun. Winston thanks them and asks them to move forward on their journey. The Gladers sadly bid farewell to their friend, and Thomas apologizes before leaving. When they are far enough away, they only hear the shot that ends Winston's life. That night, they conclude that not everyone is immune. The Gladers continue their journey through the scorching desert, and later, while sleeping, Thomas sees lights ahead, so he wakes the others. A storm approaches them, so they run toward the lights before the lightning strikes them. The Gladers arrive at an apparently abandoned warehouse. Suddenly, Miho is struck by lightning. They rescue him and take him inside, where he thankfully wakes up. Teresa checks the place and sees several cranks chained around them. Suddenly, a light turns on, and a woman approaches them, out of reach of the cranks. Brenda comes closer and invites them inside, where they find other survivors. Brenda takes them to their leader, George. Thomas tells him that they are looking for the Right Arm, but George says that they have already left. When George asks where they came from, they refuse to answer. The men capture them, allowing Brenda to scan the back of Thomas's head and reveal that they are from Wicked. The Gladers are hanging upside down from a tower, and George tells them that his men intend to sell them to Wicked. However, he hasn't decided yet, so he asks what they know about the Right Arm. George reveals that although the others believe they are gone, he heard them over the airwaves. He offers a deal in exchange for information. Thomas explains that the Right Arm hides in the mountains and rescues the young people from Wicked. Before George can continue, one of his men named Barkley appears wanting to know something about the conversation, but George doesn't say anything. George gathers his equipment and tells Brenda that they are leaving. He intends to use the Gladers to find the Right Arm, but they cannot warn the others. However, Wicked soldiers arrive and infiltrate the building. Meanwhile, Miho pushes Teresa to reach the lever and release them. Jansen's helicopter arrives and he orders them to return the teenagers, otherwise they will all die. George tells Brenda to fetch the teenagers while he prepares a surprise for Jansen. While the Gladers escape, Barkley blocks their path and calls Jansen on the radio. Brenda arrives and shoots Barkley, then leads the teenagers away from there. Meanwhile, George plays music that echoes throughout the building. Then he meets with the rest and leads them to an escape route. The Gladers pass through a rope to reach the next building. However, Brenda doesn't go with them, so Thomas follows her. Brenda searches for an item in George's office, but the soldiers find them. They rush out of the building as the music comes to an end. Cornered, Brenda and Thomas cross narrow beams. Finally, the music ends and triggers several bombs throughout the building. After the explosion, the building collapses, and Brenda and Thomas fall into the elevator shaft, covered in dust. After the dust settles, Brenda explains that George wants to use them to reach the Right Arms refuge. She mentions that George has a friend named Marcus, and that man took children from wicked facilities, which Brenda believes George will lead the others to him. Brenda and Thomas open a drain to the sewer, but they can already hear the cranks inside. Still, they have no choice but to enter. While looking for a way, Brenda finds black roots growing in one of the tunnels. They watch a rat running until a crank from the roots grabs it and devours it. The smell of blood attracts more cranks, so Brenda and Thomas flee. They run toward the light, but find themselves on a cliff overlooking a chasm between two collapsed buildings. They sneak into one of the buildings, while the cranks continue to pursue them. They climb up a fire escape, but when Brenda reaches a grate, it breaks, causing her to fall onto a cracked window. She tries to move, but every movement forms a new crack. Thomas moves up to her, but a crank suddenly appears and attacks her. She dodges him as best she can, but the creature doesn't stop the attack. So Thomas takes an iron bar, grabs Brenda's hand, breaks the glass, and makes the creature fall. When they return to the streets, Brenda reveals that the crank bit her leg. She knows she's infected, but says that Thomas should continue. They find a street full of survivors, including children. Finally, they reach Marcus's building, but a man claims that he is already dead. Thomas asks if the others have been there, and the man claims that his friends are inside before letting them in. However, the man insists that they drink from a bottle he offers, so with no choice, both drink and then he pushes them inside. Once inside, they split up to search for the others. Thomas begins to feel dizzy as he searches among the many people in the club. He reunites with Brenda, who is also feeling the effects of the drink. She kisses Thomas, but he imagines her as Teresa and backs away, hurting Brenda. In the middle of the party, Thomas hallucinates before passing out. He remembers the moment he and Teresa met in the wicked server room. He asked Eris to trust that he had to do it. Whatever he did, it was because he could no longer bear to see his friends die. Thomas wakes up next to Teresa and Niho. He finds George beating the man who gave him the drink. He discovers that the man is actually Marcus. George demands the location of the right arm, but Marcus reveals that he left them a long time ago. Marcus explains that he lures teenagers to his club and lets them have fun before handing them over to Wicked. Furious, George points a gun at him, so Marcus finally gives in. He tells them that the right arm has an outpost in the mountains, but it's far away. To speed things up, George steals Marcus's car and soon they arrive at a dead-end alley, where someone shoots at them, forcing them to take cover. George instructs Thomas to throw a bomb, but two women hold them at gunpoint. Before they act, they gather the rest of the group, but one of the women recognizes Eris. They remove their masks, and Eris recognizes them as Harriet and Sonia. Recognizes Eris. They remove their masks, and Eris recognizes them as Harriet and Sonia. Harriet and her group take them to the Right Arms camp and introduce them to the leader named Vince. Brenda suddenly faints, alerting the others that she is infected. Immediately, Vince prepares to shoot her, but Thomas convinces him to help her instead. A medic named Mary interrupts the confusion and recognizes Thomas, although he doesn't remember her. Mary reveals that he was their informant, who gave them coordinates for wicked complexes. She then orders the others to save Brenda to reward Thomas. Inside their tent, Mary reveals that she used to work for Wicked, but when they discovered that the immune produced an enzyme in the brain that slowed the flare virus, they became willing to harvest the enzyme from the youth. Mary takes a stored enzyme and injects it into Brenda, slowing the virus, but she will need more in the future. Before leaving, Mary reminds Thomas that they can't take Brenda when they move. Thomas takes care of Brenda and notices the item she grabbed from George's office. He opens it and finds a photo inside. Brenda wakes up and explains that it's her brother. She tells Thomas that Wicked took both her and him when they were children, ran various tests on them, but after testing them, they discarded Brenda, not allowing her to see her brother since then. Later, Thomas finds Teresa alone on a platform. Teresa reports that she only had her mother before Wicked, but she got sick. She kept her mother locked up out of fear she would turn, because she didn't know what to do. She says every night her mother made horrible noises, but on a certain night, Teresa checked on her mother and found that she had gouged out her own eyes. She emphasizes that millions are suffering like her, and they can't turn their backs on these people. She then apologizes and asks Thomas to understand why she did it. He then looks over her shoulders and sees helicopters approaching. He realizes she called Wicked, so he rushes to warn the others. However, before reaching the camp, a helicopter drops bombs that set everything on fire. Soldiers descend and stun everyone they find. The Gladers help Harriet and Vince fight back. Thomas finds Brenda's tent in flames, but she had already escaped. George urges him to escape with them, but Thomas wants to save his friends. A soldier throws an electric grenade at Vince's truck, knocking him and the teenagers down. George tells Thomas they can't do anything but escape. Still, Thomas refuses to leave without his friends. The helicopter lands as the soldiers gather everyone. Jansen looks for Thomas, so he surrenders. Soon, a large aircraft lands, and Ava emerges from it. She orders the soldiers to take their captives while greeting Thomas. Teresa stands beside Ava, and Jansen reveals that he intentionally restored her memories, knowing she would help them. Teresa apologizes, but emphasizes that they need to find the cure. Mary confronts Ava, but Jansen shoots her, killing her. Then Ava tells Jansen to take the others to the transport and get rid of those who stay. Furious and no longer wanting to be under the control of those murderous people, Thomas reveals a bomb he had kept with him and threatens to blow everyone up. Ava asks him if he really wants his friends to die, but the Gladers support him, encouraging him to do it to end Wicked once and for all. However, before he can trigger the detonator, George arrives with a truck, crashing into a nearby helicopter and causing a commotion. The accident provides a distraction to allow the others to fight back. Thomas throws the bomb at some soldiers and detonates it. Jansen knocks him down and points a gun at him, but Brenda shoots Jansen. The others join the fight, but Miho is restrained by a shotgun and taken. Thomas and the others try to reach him but are overwhelmed, so George pulls them back. They watch as Miho and Teresa are taken to the aircraft and return to Wicked. In the morning, the survivors recover. Thomas declares that he will go to Wicked's facilities and rescue Miho, even if he has to do it alone. The others think it's a lost cause, but Thomas points out that it's not just for Miho, but for everyone, because he knows Wicked will never stop, so he himself will put an end to their actions once and for all. Hearing this, the others are convinced and encouraged to do the same, looking to Thomas to lead them on this next journey.
Okay, so that was it. The Maze Runner 2. I had a feeling that I did not know she got her memory back. So I'm gonna make a video called I'm gonna make a video and watch recap. So you just go ahead hit that button and check out my channel. I see y'all in the next video.